At 19, she discovered a shocking secret from her millionaire cowboy husband that transformed Eve. Eve Matthews stood in her sprawling rural home, the sunlight drenching the wooden floors in golden warmth. Each beam sparkled like the dreams that had led her to this life, marrying Jake, the rugged cowboy whose smile made the world feel right. But today, that warmth flickered like a candle in the wind, as the dusty envelope lay exposed beneath a copy of Grapes of Wrath, a relic of forgotten responsibilities. Curiosity gnawed at her, urging her to grapple with whatever waited inside. Just moments ago, she felt complete, a bride wrapped in the simplicity of love, surrounded by bonfires and laughter. Now, uncertainty coiled inside her. Inside the envelope, the words danced as she read them, revealing Jake's trust fund, a fortune derived from hasty deals, tangled in the shadows of moral ambiguity. Panic washed over her, a tidal wave of confusion. This man, who had promised her a future bright with possibilities, now threatened to unravel the very principles she cherished: honesty, hard work, integrity. The autumn wind rattled the window, mirroring her frantic heart. How could his shiny exterior mask such darkness? $1 million ranch built on whispers and trade-offs was not the fairy tale she'd envisioned. As she wrestled with her disillusionment, the truth clawed at her. Could love ever trump those values? What would they build together if the foundation was rotten? Each glance at Jake, who danced effortlessly through life on his steed, filled her with dread. She no longer saw a proud rancher, but a man encumbered by secrets. Desperation filled her, propelling her deeper into art, her voice finding refuge in canvases smeared with shades of distress. With every stroke, she unleashed emotion, igniting a fire within her that had long laid dormant. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Life on the ranch turned tense as whispers of scandal enveloped their community. Friends who once rallied for barbecue nights now cast sidelong glances, uncertain how to navigate the consequences of Jake's family's tarnished legacy. Eve's sleeves rolled up in the sun. She painted a world drenched in social injustice. Every critique solidified her beliefs, yet the tumult in her heart questioned the life, the love she had chosen. Where did loyalty end and integrity begin? The confrontation with Jake came crashing like a thunderstorm.
His eyes, wide with bewilderment, searched hers for answers. A rift formed inside her, stretching taut with unyielding anguish. "You've been hiding this?" The weight of betrayal echoed in her trembling voice, and the tension between them crackled like static electricity. Could she reconcile these tangled identities, the man she loved and the ideals she revered? As silence loomed, Eve stood teetering on the edge of determination and despair, wondering if the dream she once chased was worth what she might need to sacrifice. Would she endeavor to redefine their course through chaos, or surrender to the shadows that loomed larger than life? In that fleeting moment, everything hung in the balance, waiting for her decision to crack the facade of love and reveal the truth of her soul. Eve found herself trapped in a cyclone of emotions, the tangible reality of the ranch swirling around her like a harsh wind. The silence after her confrontation with Jake pressed down, thick as molasses, unsettling her more than any raised voice or angry accusation could. She stood in the studio she had created from an old barn, her sacred space filled with half-finished canvases, splatters of paint, and memories of unrestrained creativity. The sun dipped below the horizon, a fiery ball of orange melting into the earth, as her thoughts deepened in the growing darkness. She picked up a brush and dipped it into a violent swirl of crimson paint. The vibrant color danced on the canvas, mirroring her internal tempest. Each stroke was cathartic, an unearthing of latent frustrations and uncertainties. The painting was chaotic yet beautiful, reflecting the erratic conflict boiling in her core. As her hands worked furiously, Eve faced a pivotal question. How far was she willing to go to protect her values?
With each finished stroke, she summoned fragments of her past, her parents' steadfast integrity, the work ethic instilled in her since childhood. Images of people laboring under the sun, their faces etched with the lines of hard-earned wisdom and honesty, ran through her mind. Jake's hidden financial dealings seemed like a stark betrayal against the values she held sacred. But could love blind her to the point where she was willing to overlook his faults just to maintain her vision of a happily ever after? The thought sent a shiver of uncertainty down her spine. Her mind flitted back to the laughter they shared, cuddled under the stars, the warmth of his arms around her, the promise of forever whispered into the softness of dusk. How could one man hold such contrasting truths? The image of his smiling face floated into her thoughts again, but now she scrutinized it more closely. Was the warmth she felt merely a reflection of the adrenaline that accompanied romantic ideals, now stripped bare by the harsh light of reality?
Finishing her painting was both a release and a reminder, but the rush of creative energy soon faded as doubt seeped into her thoughts like ink smudging a pristine page. Distraught, she wiped her hands clean. Instead of confronting Jake again, she realized that her real challenge lay in confronting herself, dissecting her feelings to understand what she truly valued. The quiet had now deepened, morphing into a cacophony of thoughts. To navigate this tumult, she needed a plan, one not only for her relationship with Jake, but for her own identity. Who was she if she refused to sacrifice her principles for love? The resolve built within her, heightened by an urgency that demanded action. Deciding on a course of action, she grabbed her laptop, her pulse quickening with every keystroke. She began researching ethical entrepreneurship, motivated by the possibility of establishing a business grounded in the very values that had flickered in her heart. She envisioned galleries showcasing artists who, like her, painted not just for aesthetic pleasure, but to evoke change, a powerful statement against the darkness that was now so present in her life. With each few minutes spent refining her idea, Eve felt empowered, her mind shifting from reactive to proactive. Yet the real test lay just beyond reach. How would she pitch this vision to Jake? The art world thrived on passion and integrity, and the stark reality of their situation loomed overhead, casting a troubling shadow on her dreams. Yet, as she scrolled through artist websites, she stumbled upon a quote, "In darkness, you find your truest self." A chill ran through her, unveiling a resolve beneath the surface. The revelation struck her as she contemplated this thread of light that might, somehow, guide her through emotional labyrinths yet untraveled. The time had come to face Jake once more, but this time she would be a woman unyielding in her principles, firmly holding on to her values. Eden's brush had painted a battle of the heart, but the next stroke would reveal her path toward resolution. Would this newfound clarity lead to a deeper understanding or further fracture their lives? A sense of urgency propelled her into the unknown as the real battlefield loomed ahead. Eve took a deep breath, her heart pounding in rhythm with her determination. The next morning she allowed the golden light of dawn to wash over her as she prepared to face Jake. The decision to confront him felt monumental, yet it was a battle she refused to shy away from. Each thoughtful step she took towards the main house was filled with the echoes of her introspection, still swirling in her mind. As she approached, she rehearsed her words, crafting a careful balance of honesty and strength. She wanted to stand firm, presenting not just a woman Jake had fallen in love with, but the empowered version she'd become overnight. She refused to be just another character in his narrative of convenience. She hungered for authenticity and the courage to voice her convictions. Entering the house, the scent of coffee greeted her, drawing her towards the kitchen where Jake busied himself. The picturesque scene of him brewing coffee struck her. What was once mundane now felt tainted by the weight of betrayal. She observed him, his movements fluid and easy, but her heart twisted with the uncertainty of what lay beneath that facade. "Morning," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Morning, Eve. I thought I'd make breakfast," he replied, glancing toward her with a smile that was warm yet familiar. She nodded, each second stretching painfully as she searched for the right moment. The coffee pot hissed as it wound down, the silence amplifying the tension in the air. Gathering herself, she leaned against the kitchen island, creating a deliberate distance between them. I need to talk to you about something important, she started, her voice steady. Jake's smile faltered, an emotion flickering across his face that hinted at concern. Sure, what's up? Eve took a breath, the weight of her convictions filling her with a newfound sense of clarity. I know about your financial dealings, she said, her words slicing through the comfortable atmosphere like a knife. For the first time, Jake's expression shifted, his eyes narrowing slightly. What do you mean? Cut the pretenses, Jake. I'm aware of the risks you're taking. It compromises everything we've built, every promise of honesty and integrity we stood for. With a sharp inhale, she pushed forward, her voice firm. I can't pretend everything is okay when it isn't. Trust is everything, and you've jeopardized that. For a brief moment, they were locked in a battle of gazes, electricity crackling in the space between them. Jake's surprise turned to something deeper, defiance perhaps. Eve, I did what I had to do for us. You don't understand the stakes. Then explain it to me, she urged, her heart racing. I need to know why you thought hiding this from me was acceptable. The tension hung palpably in the air, but Eve stood her ground, knowing this conversation was pivotal for both of them. Behind her anger simmered a fragile hope that they could reach an understanding, yet doubt felt like an unwanted guest. What you're doing isn't just business. It's a betrayal of everything I stand for, she added, her voice breaking slightly, revealing the vulnerability she desperately tried to contain. Jake ran a hand through his hair, frustration flickering in his eyes. You don't see the bigger picture, Eve. Sometimes you have to bend the rules to survive. No, Jake, it's not about bending the rules. It's about the integrity of your choices. Eve's voice softened, peeling back the layers of conflict to reveal the core of her purpose. You're sacrificing our principles for what? A fleeting advantage?
I can't be part of this if you can't see that. At that moment, she realized that this confrontation wasn't just about Jake's decisions. It represented her own breaking point, her refusal to compromise her values. No longer could she allow herself to be swept up in the whirlwind of love without recognizing the deeper implications of his choices. Jake's silence spoke volumes, but Eve had said her piece. The uncertainty lingered thick in the air, and with a heavy heart she turned to leave, knowing that the true battle was just beginning. Could Jake still aspire to the man she believed him to be? Was there a path leading back to trust, or had their journey diverged beyond repair? As she stepped back into the light, a shudder coursed through her. Was she losing not just him, but the future she had envisioned? The reverberations of their conversation echoed in her mind as she pondered her next move. Would her commitment to integrity lead to redemption or confrontation? The real question lingered. Now that she had drawn her line, where would it take her? Eve closed the door behind her, the heaviness of the conversation still hanging in the air like a dark cloud. Outside, the sunlight felt almost foreign against her skin, illuminating her path but shadowing her thoughts. She had set a boundary, the first true assertion of her identity in the tangled web of their relationship. Yet now, as she walked across the porch, the sense of empowerment was intertwined with a gnawing doubt. What would this boundary cost her? In that moment of reflection, Eve felt the swell of uncertainty threaten to topple the courageous facade she had carefully assembled. She had confronted Jake, exposing her own vulnerabilities and laying bare the fractures in their foundations, yet where would it lead? As she navigated her emotions, she resolved that it could not end merely with empty declarations. The dust of conflict had settled, and now it was time to determine her own next steps. Her determination morphed into a plan. If Jake wanted their relationship to survive, he needed to understand the weight of his choices. For the first time, Eve acknowledged that merely confronting him wasn't enough. She needed to ensure he comprehended the ramifications of his actions, both for her and for their future. The thought ignited a spark within her, ramping up her determination to act decisively. She grabbed her notebook from the kitchen table where it always lay close at hand, ready to capture thoughts, ideas, and plans. Sitting on the porch swing, she opened to a fresh page, the blank canvas inviting her to map out her next moves. Define your boundaries, she wrote in bold letters at the top. Beneath it, she began to outline what mattered most: honesty, respect, and shared values. As each word flowed, her heartbeat steadied, a reminder that she was in control of her narrative. Tapping the pencil against her chin, Eve contemplated the next step. Based on their earlier conversation, she realized she'd have to gather more information about Jake's dealings, enough to understand the full scope of what they faced. If she was going to advocate for integrity, she needed to do so from a position of knowledge. The mere act of confronting him was not merely a stand, it was about arming herself with insight. Just as she was piecing together her research goals, her phone buzzed against the wooden swing. A message from her best friend, Sarah, popped onto the screen. "Are you okay? Heard you had a talk with Jake." Eve hesitated for a moment. Could she reveal the turmoil she felt? Instead, she chose to type, "I confronted him about some things. I think it was a turning point." There was a pause before Sarah responded, words coming through with a reassuring tone. "Proud of you, but remember, you deserve to be supported, not tethered." Eve sat back, her friend's words echoing in her mind. This wasn't just about Jake. It was a profound self-assessment. She had to relinquish the need to mold herself to fit into someone else's ideals. What were her self-imposed barriers? How often had she suppressed her own needs for the relationship? In peeling back the layers of her dismissals, she discovered a raw openness, a willingness to chart her own course. With renewed focus, she picked up the pencil again. Mapping out her investigation, tracking the shadows of his dealings, seemed like a daunting task. Yet she welcomed the challenge. Each discovery would not only arm her with the truth, it would also bolster her resolve. What lay ahead felt uncertain, but this path felt right. Eve knew she was growing in strength and clarity. The next phase required both emotional fortitude and strategic planning. She had drawn her line, but she needed to prepare for what would come next. Would Jake fight to regain her trust, or would he dismiss her efforts in the face of his own ambitions? The questions hung heavily. As she pursued answers, her narrative was no longer just a reflection of their story. It was evolving into a powerful testament of her growth and potential. The time had come to confront the truth. Could love truly flourish in the shadow of deceit? The moment of reckoning was looming closer, and Eve was determined to be ready. Eve took a deep breath, feeling the day's warmth wash over her as she closed her notebook. An invigorating blend of fear and courage swirled inside her. The looming confrontation with Jake had propelled her into uncharted territory of both heart and mind. She felt alive with possibility, yet tethered to the past, a conflicting dichotomy of strength and vulnerability. She made her way to the local library, an unassuming brick building that held more secrets than she imagined. Within its walls lay countless tomes of knowledge, each a potential key to unlocking the truth she sought about Jake.
If he was hiding something significant, her instincts told her the answer might be buried in someone else's narrative. Inside, Eve scanned the shelves, her fingers brushing against spines of books covering everything from finance to psychology. She had often regarded herself as someone cautious, afraid of digging too deep, worried that the truth might unsettle everything she knew. But today, that fear was gone. In its place stood a determination equaled only by the urgency of her mission. She settled into a nook at the back of the library, surrounded by towering shelves, and opened her notebook once again. "Investigate," she scribbled at the top of the page. Underneath, a list began to form, questions that had lingered in her mind for too long. What were Jake's actual investments? Who were his partners? What secrets had he woven into the fabric of their life together? 50 minutes of fervent research yielded a wealth of knowledge. She learned about basic financial terms, investment strategies, and the hallmark signs of deceit in business practices. Each page turned felt like she was chiseling away at the stone of ignorance that had surrounded her for far too long. This newfound awareness felt empowering. She wasn't just a passive observer anymore. She was taking command. With the library closing in an hour, she hurriedly flipped through articles about Jake's supposed business ventures, tracing out connections and red flags. She made notes about key players and the nuances of business dealings. But then she hit an unexpected wall. There was a partnership that remained conspicuously absent from public records. It was just a name in the dark, lingering at the edge of her new insights. The knot in her stomach twisted tighter. What more was he hiding? That lingering question wouldn't let her go. The sun had begun to dip behind the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the library floor as Eve gathered her belongings. As she stepped outside, the cool evening air enveloped her, bringing clarity. Just a few hours ago, she had been unsure of whether she had the strength to move forward. Now she saw the path ahead, albeit fraught with challenges, none of which she could shy away from. Each step felt resolute as she walked home. She would arrange a confrontation, but this time she would take the lead. She would use the knowledge she had uncovered as her shield, and if Jake wanted to reclaim her trust, he would have to step into the light, revealing everything. As she reached the front porch, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Jake. Heart pounding, she hesitated before answering. Would he sense her strength, or would he try to manipulate her emotions again? "Eve," came his voice, smooth yet uncertain. "Can we talk? I need to explain." The words hung in the air, electric with the weight of unspoken truths. She could feel the rising tension in her chest. This was it. The moment she had been preparing for had arrived.
But could she face him without shaking? As she stood on the precipice of this pivotal moment, Eve realized the truth had never been far from her grasp. Railing.
The world felt both distant and magnified. The night air whispered secrets of its own, sending shivers down her spine as Jake's voice danced over the line, warm yet overshadowed by uncertainty. "What do you want to explain?" she asked, keeping her tone steady despite the tempest stirring within her. He paused, and she could almost hear him gathering his thoughts, the weight of their shared history pressing heavily on both their shoulders. "I didn't mean for you to find out the way you did. There's more to what I've been involved in than you know." His voice trailed off, regret evident in his tone. Eve's heart raced. The time for passive listening was over. "Then tell me," she insisted, cutting through his hesitation. "What is it? What is this partnership you keep hiding?" She felt an unfamiliar assertiveness swell inside her, layers of self-doubt peeling away. This was her moment to confront the uncertainty festering in their life. Each word that passed between them would either strengthen her resolve or deepen the void created by deception. He sighed, a sound laden with both exhaustion and frustration. "It's complicated, Eve. I didn't want you to worry. It was supposed to be a way for us to secure our future." The us echoed in her mind, an unsteady foundation built on shifting sands. With every passing second, the knowledge she had gained sat like a heavy stone in her pocket, urging her to dig deeper. "You can't just dismiss this. I deserve to know what's going on. You've kept me in the dark for too long." Silence thickened the air as if a veil lay heavily between them. Eve took a breath, grounding herself. "I spent hours at the library today, and I found out a lot more than I expected. This thing you're doing, it feels off. I know you're keeping secrets." His voice dropped to a near whisper. "There are people involved that we don't want to cross, Eve." Fear clawed at her resolve. She had always wanted a safe life, one that sheltered her from hidden currents. But safety now felt like a weighty shackle. Did she value comfort over sustainability in their relationship? She had to decide, investigate the truth, or let it fester. Suddenly she recalled the hidden partner, the missing information, the strange markings in the texts she had read. "People? You mean there's more than just you? Who else is in this? What's being covered up?" "Trust me, this is for your protection as much as mine," he replied defensively. Eve's stomach sank. Protection? This was manipulation masked as a facade of love. "I won't be kept in the dark. I would rather face danger together than live a lie. My darling Eve, I love you."
"I thought I was doing what was best." His soft tone crashed against her obstinate resolve, drawing forth memories of affection, but entwining them with the bitterness of betrayal. "Love isn't just about promises, Jake. It's about trust. I can only move forward with transparency." Her voice strengthened, fueled by newfound conviction. The irony of her own words struck a chord. How many times had she embraced the easy route, brushing off volatility for simplicity? Can we meet?" he asked, his voice fracturing with uncertainty. "Tomorrow," she replied, her mind racing with the possibilities of what lay ahead. The confrontation was no longer about Jake. It had morphed into a battle for her own integrity and resolve. As they hung up, she was hit with a rush of clarity, a realization that the day held more significance than she had anticipated. What she feared most was not necessarily the truth, but the decisions she would have to make as she laid her newfound strength on the line. Eve glanced at her notebook, the pages still filled with questions just waiting for answers. She would transform her fear into a meticulously executed plan. The next hours would be pivotal, the ultimate test of her growth. As she prepared to confront Jake, the new confrontation centered not just around him, but around her own evolving identity. She couldn't shake the feeling that the revelation would unlock far more than just a secret. It would either bind them together or fracture the foundation even further. And yet, somewhere in the recesses of her mind, a burning question lingered. Could the truth actually pave a path toward deeper connection, or would it shatter everything? With resolve tensing her muscles, Eve waited for dawn, knowing the time would finally come for clarity or irrevocable change. The dawn broke gently, casting fragile light across the porch as Eve remained still, lost in contemplation. Each ray of sunlight seemed to draw out the shadows within her, highlighting thoughts that refused to dissipate. She clutched her notebook tightly. It was her anchor amid the chaos of feelings swirling around her. With an inward sigh, she opened the pages,
glancing over her meticulously penned notes from the previous day. Questions about Jake's hidden partnership and the implications of his secrets. Each line was a reminder of the journey she was on, a journey toward authenticity and resolve. Today wasn't merely about confronting Jake, it was a crucible moment for herself. The core of her identity was forming in the fire of her fear and courage, struggling between who she used to be and who she desired to become. As the hours slipped by, anticipation twisted in her stomach. She made her way through the mundane tasks of the morning, showering, dressing, and forcing herself to eat, but her mind drifted. Each sound, each fleeting thought, aroused a deeper question. What had she been willing to ignore for the sake of maintaining her current life?
How many shadows of doubt had she quietly accepted? Eve pictured the meeting with Jake ahead. The weight of her notebook was not just in the questions it contained, but also in the resolve that seemed to grow back within her. Again, the thought entered her mind. To demand transparency was to engage in a dance of vulnerability. Could she confront openly, daring enough to expose her own insecurities in the same breath? Just after noon, she sat at the cafe they had frequented many times, the familiar clinking of cups and chatter of voices surrounding her, feeling distinctly alone. Every passing moment felt charged with tension, anticipation tightening her chest as she sipped her coffee. She had arrived early, crafting a plan in her mind. She would articulate her concerns clearly, standing firm in her identity. She would own her past, acknowledge the choices she'd made, and choose to demand honesty. Then she saw him. Jake walked in, his familiar posture that once filled her with comfort, now felt like an encroaching storm. His gaze fell upon her, and he hesitated, swallowing down whatever turmoil spun in his mind. Eve's breath caught. Would he come in as the man she loved, or the stranger who had concealed too much? She invited him to sit, and they exchanged a casual greeting that teetered precariously on the edge of genuine warmth and frigid tension. Without waiting for small talk to consume them, she plunged into the heart of their issues. I need to know, Jake. Life can't just be about fears and half-truths anymore. He shifted, the weight of her words visibly settling upon him. Eve felt her heartbeat quicken. What would he reveal? Would the truth she uncovered reshape everything she knew about him and herself? I've been trying to protect you, he began, his voice steady but laced with guilt. The sound of it cut deeper than she expected, urging her to steel herself against whatever was falling into place. Her mind raced. Each word was a ticking clock, threatening to unveil something she couldn't bear to hear. Perhaps this moment was the beginning of a metamorphosis, a step away from the safety she had clung to for far too long. She couldn't help but wonder what revelations were about to unfold. Would Jake's truth lead to liberation, or further ensnare her? As he opened his mouth to speak, the cafe faded around her, and her heart pounded in her ears. A storm was brewing, and it was time to face the tempest, both within herself and with Jake. I'm listening, she urged, her voice a steady blend of challenge and encouragement. But would she be prepared for the revelations that were about to surface? Truths that threatened to dissolve the life she thought she'd built. The air between them felt thick with uncertainty, a silence thickening as the precipice of change loomed closer. And as she awaited his answer, Eve realized that the real transformation was not just in confronting Jake. It was about fully embracing the woman she was destined to become. The silence hung in the air, pressing down on Eve like the weight of an unspoken truth. She could see Jake's internal struggle play out on his face. Each flicker of uncertainty betrayed the confidence he had feigned only moments earlier. The cafe's clamor transformed into a distant hum, eclipsed by her need for clarity. I've kept things from you, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, yet reverberating with the impact of his honesty. I wasn't just trying to protect you. I was protecting myself, too. Eve's chest tightened. Her instinct was to recoil from the admission, yet she knew instinctively that avoidance would only deepen the abyss between them. What aren't you telling me? She pressed, her tone maintaining an assertiveness that felt foreign but necessary. Jake took a breath, wavering, as if sifting through a bundle of secrets he had tightly held. There are financial entanglements, business deals that aren't what they seem. A shiver of unease slithered through her. The shadows of doubt that had once been mere whispers grew into a cacophony. How deep do these entanglements go? Each inquiry was an act of separation from her old self, a self willing to placate discomfort to preserve love.
The partnership is complex, he replied, hesitant. I didn't want to burden you with the details of my business. I thought if you knew, it would put you in danger. Eve narrowed her eyes, fighting against the urge to dismiss his concerns as an excuse. Or it could create a bond, Jake. You didn't trust me enough to share this, and that worries me more than the business itself. His eyes widened, a flash of realization striking him. His silence spoke volumes. This admission meant that his gaps in honesty were not just a reflection of his past choices, but also of their relationship's fragility. Eve felt a surge of clarity wash over her. Here was the moment where she could either retreat, again choosing comfort over truth, or progress into the unknown. I need to understand more than just the facts, she stated formally. I require honesty about your motivations and fears. We can't proceed on half-truths, as painful as they are. The atmosphere shifted. The tentative tension around them sparked a deeper reckoning. Jake's expression morphed, and she could almost see a flicker of respect in his eyes. He was grappling with the realization that Eve wasn't just fighting for answers, she was fighting for the integrity of their bond. Okay, let's go deeper, he acquiesced, a new resolve settling in his demeanor. I've been afraid for so long that entrusting you with these details would shatter the foundation we built together. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe we can rebuild it stronger with honesty. And right there, Eve sensed a shift within herself. She wasn't merely receiving information. She was taking active steps to redefine what their relationship could look like. This process was a form of empowerment, not just for her, but for Jake too.
Tell me everything, she urged, feeling a primal need to reclaim agency over her life. Knowledge became the currency of rebirth. As he began to unravel the complexities of his world, she could feel her own power consolidating. Each revelation felt like peeling back layers that were never meant to exist between partners. The wall she had built for self-preservation began to crack, and she found herself exchanging fear for courage. Just as Jake shared the depth of his fears about their financial stability, asking if they had what it took to weather this storm together, Eve considered her response carefully. I don't want to live in fear anymore, Jake. Whatever this is, we can tackle it together. His eyes softened, and in that moment, she felt they were embarking on a fresh journey, illuminating the path forward. But as Jake continued to speak, unexpected names began surfacing, associates from his past she had never heard of. The chill of uncertainty crept back in, leaving Eve with a disquieting realization. Perhaps the tumult ahead was more than she had bargained for, echoing her own hidden fears. A thought penetrated her mind. If they uncovered deeper truths, what would it mean for her life beyond this moment? Would the revelations lead to liberation, or was a far more complex struggle lurking just beneath the surface? As the pieces of their relationship shifted, Eve prepared herself to confront new challenges. The clarity she sought might lead to unforeseen chaos. How much of their shared future would they have to redefine? The air filled with charged uncertainty, Eve felt the shadows closing in, emboldening her to brace for whatever storm was next. She took a deep breath, ignited by the intensity of the moment. Was she ready for what came next, not just for Jake's truth, but for her own? The cafe buzzed around them, a chaotic backdrop to the whirlwind of emotion swirling inside Eve. She forced herself to focus on Jake's words, absorbing each revelation that punctured the fragile fabric of their bond. Yet beneath the surface, an unshakable resolve began to take shape. She might have come to this realization later than she desired, but understanding the chaos was her choice now. Okay, she said, steadying her voice. Let's sift through the names you mentioned. Start with the one that concerns you the most. Jake glanced around, as if searching for escape routes. Even in this dense honesty, he was still skittish, anchored by old fears. He dragged a hand through his hair, a gesture of desperation, and Eve found herself caught between empathy and frustration. She wasn't here to validate his fears. She was here to forge clarity. Sammy Grayson, he finally admitted, his voice low. He's the one behind the shady investments. Ben and I, my business partner, thought we could use his influence to move forward, but it's only Titus and Babs. Eve narrowed her gaze, feeling a prick of recognition.
Isn't he the one with a local reputation for aggressive tactics? Jake nodded, his demeanor sinking further. Each vulnerable confession hit her like an electric current, grounding her. She thought she had known about Jake's business, but there was a labyrinth of secrecy weaving through their lives like a dark thread. You don't need to shield me from the reality. I want to grapple with this together, understand what I'm stepping into. He released a breath that sounded almost like relief, revealing moments of vulnerability she hadn't seen before. It ignited a flicker of awareness in her. What do you feel? Confronted by this mess, are we still pacing in rhythm, or am I stepping into a void? Their eyes locked as she pushed for the truth of his feelings. It was as much a challenge as a question. She needed to know what he thought when faced with the potential destruction of their life together. I feel like I've been playing with fire without realizing it, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Every time I thought I was making a smart move, I was just adding fuel. I don't want to lose you, and that fear almost paralyzes me. I never wanted this to be a part of your life. Breathe, Jake, she said, her voice calm yet commanding. Everything is on the table now. We need clarity to navigate forward, to break free from this fear. What are the stakes? His jaw clenched, his gaze dropping to the tabletop, as if the answer lay hidden in the grain of the wood. She leaned closer, her presence fortifying. You're not the only one who could stand to grow here. This isn't solely your burden to bear. It's ours. I've involved you in a world too complicated for someone like you, he murmured, almost to himself. Someone like me? You underestimate me, Jake, she shot back, her frustration bubbling to the surface. Proving herself was no longer optional. It was imperative. I will not allow us to be defined by those entanglements. You've said it yourself. Trust is vital, and that means unveiling every layer. With every heartbeat, her desire to empower surged. What's my role in this? How can I help you make better choices? As he began to articulate the action plan that could possibly undo the weight of the situation, she felt a force shifting within her. This wasn't just about standing strong beside him. This was about stepping into leadership. Even if Jake was stumbling through his fears, she could fortify her stance, become the collaborator he needed. With determination stitching them together, the weight of uncertainty hung in the air like a magnolia tree after a storm, waiting for the sun to break through. Yet, as the coffee cooled in its cup, a troubling thought lodged in her mind. If pushing into this uncharted territory would reveal deeper financial chains, etched with names that twisted conflict into chaos, where would that leave them? Jake, if we're going to tackle this, we need to be on the same platform.
Eve hesitated, knowing the next words could shake him anew. But the question remains, are you willing to confront everything, even if it means facing the consequences of your past? The moment expanded between them, no longer just a conversation, but a choice. Would Jake rise to meet this challenge alongside her, or would fear pull him back underground? As uncertainty loomed, Eve felt the tides of her own resolve crashing against the fragile shore of their love. How deeply could they dive together, and would it lead to their saving grace or mutual destruction? Eve's heart raced as the cafe buzzed around them, the world holding its breath in anticipation of clarity to come. She sensed a shift brimming within her, the realization that their survival depended on her willingness to traverse this unforgiving terrain. The journey of healing would be theirs to navigate together, but it needed the stability of honesty. Only then could they ever find the footing they had lost. Jake, if we're going to unravel this, we must follow the truth to its roots. Whatever happens, we can't shy away. Her voice rang with determination, a plea for mutual acknowledgement. She observed the conflict in his eyes. His hesitation hung thick in the air between them. Would he grasp the urgency for growth, or would fear immobilize him? He inhaled sharply, as if he sensed the gravity of the moment. I understand your perspective, Eve, he declared, gathered yet trembling under the weight of the truth. I want to reclaim us, but Sammy, there's no telling how far he'll go if he feels cornered. Eve nodded, firming her resolve. Then let's face him together. The idea surged within her, unshackled from the past filled with drudgery and conflict. She realized that it wasn't just out the business. This was their pivotal opportunity for connection. Emerging from the dance of shadows, she demanded that he elevate their dialogue. Transparency is the gateway to our healing. If you truly care to move forward, then it's time for us both to act. As he stared at her, wonder and respect laced his expression. I never thought you'd face this head on. You've changed. I've had to, she replied, embodying a confidence that rendered her alive. In confronting this, I'm claiming my own growth. Love is about facing challenges, not cowering beneath them. That moment of connectivity, a fusion of fear and strength, ignited something profound.
Their precarious dance shifted into a synchronization of understanding with the potential for deeper intimacy. Eve felt herself stepping into a new realm. Leadership began to take shape as she nudged the conversation toward action. How can we confront Sammy without putting us both at risk? Jake considered his words carefully. There's a meeting set in a week. If I can pull you in as a partner, your voice may grant us leverage. But I must come clean about the full extent of my involvement, and I can't do that without your support.
For us to take the next step, that means revealing everything to your stakeholders, she proposed, measuring the significance. We delve into his operations together. We expose deception fully. He assented, finally embracing the challenge before them. You're right. Together we'll confront it all. No more shadows, Eve. Days passed in a haze of preparation, sleepless nights filled with research and strategy. Eve pored over documents, scrutinizing the intricate relationships tangled within Jake's deals. Each evening spent in collaboration fortified their connection, carving out fresh terrain within the chiseled lines of their relationship. She felt empowered. This was her moment of achievement, of demonstrating not just love, but competence rooted in integrity. Eve had transformed from the woman teetering in uncertainty to one who stood resolute at the helm of their narrative. Finally, the day of the meeting arrived. Inside a conference room with a polished mahogany table, they faced the formidable figures cloaked in ambition and power. Sammy sat alongside his associates, an imposing barrier to truth. The air grew thick with tension as Eve and Jake entered the room, yet she marveled at her own unwavering resolve. As they initiated their presentations, Eve maintained a firm grip on her position, articulating the stark realities of transparency in business and emphasizing the ethical framework she intended to uphold. With each word exchanged, she seized the narrative, transforming their impending conflict into a larger conversation about integrity that would ripple across communities and industries alike. Jake stood beside her, embodying a man reborn as he witnessed her rise. Together, they reconciled his past choices, unraveling complexities with an unwavering commitment to shared values. As the meeting drew to a close, Sammy's cold demeanor began to falter when faced with their united front. A profound respect blossomed between them, a recognition of something more significant than individual ambition. Their collaboration, forged in vulnerability and strength, began to shape a new vision of sustainable business. Eve felt the fire within her, not of rage or fear, but of empowerment. She had proven her mettle, illustrating that her voice mattered profoundly in a world clamoring for honesty. In that room, under the weight of corporate scrutiny, she manifested the woman she was meant to be. And as they exited, the sunlight spilled across their faces in a radiant affirmation. The uncertainty that had once gripped her heart faded, leaving behind only a sense of solid confidence. Eve and Jake emerged, not unscathed, but more resilient. Their future now rested on a foundation of renewed trust and unyielding principles, a testament to how love anchored in integrity could weather even the stormiest of seas. This was not just a happy ending, it was the beginning of something remarkable, a life filled with purpose and possibility.
Eve smiled, her heart steadied. She had achieved what she set out to do, conquer the shadows and illuminate her path. Now was the time for others to embrace their own journeys of overcoming. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share your support for the empowering stories that resonate with true growth and transformation.